The vagina is a hollow muscular structure that connects the uterus to the outside of the body. It's lined with stratified squamous epithelial tissue, non-keratinized. The muscular wall is smooth muscle, and there's a connective tissue coat that encases the vagina called the adventitia. Here we can see a recessed area of the proximal portion of the vagina surrounding the cervix. That's known as the fornix. Taking a look at this mid-sagittal section, here's the uterus. Notice how the uterus is tilting forward anteriorly. That's known as anteflexion, and that's a very typical orientation for the uterus. We can see the cervix projecting into the vagina. Here's the vagina, and here's the vaginal opening. The stratified squamous epithelium that lines the vagina can extend and grow into the vaginal opening, partially enclosing it, and that's what's known as the hymen, which is typically damaged with physical activity or sexual activity. The vaginal opening is part of the external genitalia, which collectively is known as the vulva. So everything on the outside of the female is known as the vulva. The vulva consists of mons pubis. Mons pubis is just the fat pad in front of the pubic symphysis. And then the anterior-most structure is the clitoris. Notice how they're color-coding this like they color-coded the erectile tissue in the male in our book. That's because this structure is analogous to what would have developed into a penis in the male. Just posterior to the clitoris is the urethral opening, and in a female, here's the urinary bladder, the urethra. That is a separate system. It's not shared with the reproductive system like we saw in the male. Vaginal opening, we looked at that. And on either side of the vaginal opening, right and left, there are a small pair of glands called the greater vestibular glands that secrete mucus into this area. This region is enclosed by two folds of skin, labia minora and labia majora. We're taking a look at the superficial anatomy. Let's take a look at those structures again. This is mons pubis. That's just the tissue that's anterior to the pubic symphysis. And notice how that tissue extends posteriorly into two outer folds of skin. Those folds are labia majora. Labia majora encloses the whole vulva and is part of the vulva. Just medial to labia majora are two smaller folds. These are called labia minora, and labia minora enclose a space. This open space where the vagina opens into is known as the vestibule. And so looking at the structures in the vestibule, the clitoris is most anterior, and then moving posterior, we can see the urethral opening, and then the vaginal opening. We can also see the openings to the greater vestibular glands. Another thing that they're showing us in this picture is a region called the perineum. The perineum is bordered anteriorly by the pubic arch, posteriorly by the coccyx, and then laterally by the ischial tuberosity. So the space inside of this area is known as the perineum.